Welcome to the Bendano Podcast, where we're calling a spade a spade. Great to be here with you guys today. We're going to need to rename the University of South Carolina to Victimhood U. The university where victims are made. The university where if you go and you play basketball over there, seems like AB might be an anomaly. You come out of that university, you come out of that program under the tutelage of Dawn Staley, and you fully embrace the victimhood mindset. Here we have Raven Johnson not only embracing the victimhood mindset, but doing what many others.
She sat there and said it with a straight face, dropping a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the entire basketball community. Raven Johnson appeared on a high-profile podcast and claimed that she was targeted with the most disgusting racial slurs imaginable, specifically alleging that fans called her a monkey after her viral encounter with Caitlin Clark. But as the clip started to circulate, the narrative began to crumble under the weight of its own inconsistencies. This wasn't just a simple disagreement on the court anymore. It was the birth of what critics are now calling a massive racial hoax designed to villainize a specific fan base. The tension reached a boiling point when Angel Reese stepped into the fray, snapping over the backlash and fueling a fire that many believe was started on a foundation of pure fiction.
The victimhood mindset. Here we have Raven Johnson not only embracing the victimhood mindset, but doing what many others in the WNBA do, calling Caitlin Clark fans racist when we follow the logic path. It just doesn't check out. Maybe it was the South Carolina fans that were calling you a monkey. Let's get right into it, shall we? Please like the video, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and subscribe to the channel. That would mean so much to me. Raven Johnson goes on the I Am Athlete podcast, claims that Caitlin Clark fans were calling her.
The incident that started this entire saga seemed like a standard competitive basketball play at the time. Back in 2023, Caitlin Clark did the unthinkable on the national stage. She waved off Raven Johnson at the three-point line, essentially telling the world that Johnson wasn't a threat from deep. It was a cold-blooded tactical move that went viral instantly, but nobody expected it to evolve into a years-long drama about alleged racial abuse. Instead of focusing on the game, the narrative shifted toward painting a picture of systemic harassment. The fallout from that single gesture has become the cornerstone of a narrative that portrays Iowa fans as a toxic mob, even though the logic behind these specific accusations is starting to look incredibly shaky to anyone looking for actual evidence.
Basketball players goes on podcasts. When they go on podcasts, they know it's going to be very hard to gain traction, very hard to draw in an audience on their own. So what do they need to do? They need to mention Caitlin Clark. And if they really want to go above and beyond, they need to make up a race hoax. Let's hear what she had to say.
And then another adversity would probably be Caitlin Clark.
And look at how far Caitlin Clark is playing off of Raven
disrespectful.
Johnson. Caitlin Clark, left side. She doesn't even look at her. Waves her hand as if
Damn.
to say, I don't care about
Woo.
you. I'm not defending you.
That's one reason I hate the internet now, because of that situation.
When Raven Johnson sat down for her interview on the I Am Athlete podcast, she knew exactly what she was doing. She claimed the wave-off led to her being bullied and called names that she wouldn't even repeat, eventually settling on the most shocking allegation possible. She claimed she wanted to quit basketball and hide in a bubble of isolation because of the supposed racial slurs coming from the stands. However, the timing of these revelations is what has everyone talking. Why wait 3 years to bring up something this serious? Critics are pointing out that whenever these players need a boost in engagement or a way to stay relevant, they immediately pivot back to Caitlin Clark and the alleged behavior of her fans, creating a cycle of controversy that never seems to end.
9 times out of 10, you're going to be a victim. It seems like it's almost a requirement to play this game. Be a victim and say you got called names by white people. So exhausted by this bullshit, y'all need to go away. We're never escaping this. The way she played, I would have waved her off myself. They got beat, and she took heat online from South Carolina fans. Iowa fans wouldn't give a shit about her from that game. Get over it already. Caitlin Clark.
The logic path here just doesn't check out when you actually look at the facts of that game. If Caitlin Clark waved her off because she couldn't shoot the three, why would Iowa fans feel the need to hurl racial slurs at her? They were winning the psychological battle on the court. It makes far more sense that the harsh comments were actually coming from her own South Carolina fan base, who were frustrated that she wouldn't take the wide open shots. When a player is wide open and refuses to shoot, their own fans are usually the ones who get the most vocal and aggressive. Attributing that anger to Iowa fans feels like a strategic move to deflect from her own performance issues and lean into a victimhood mindset that has become far too common in the sport today.
And she took heat online from South Carolina fans. Iowa fans wouldn't give a shit about her from that game. Get over it already. Caitlin Clark lives rent-free in these players' minds. Lives rent-free in these players' minds. When the class coming in, where we got about 2 more years of players coming in that never crossed paths with Caitlin Clark in college, I would say maybe then and only then we'll get players that just stop mentioning Caitlin Clark in interviews. But I have a feeling with the way things are going, even people that are freshmen in high school now, by the time they get to Victimhood University, they're gonna say, darn that.
Welcome to what many are now calling Victimhood University, otherwise known as the University of South Carolina. Under the leadership of Dawn Staley, it seems like the program has fully embraced a culture where players are taught to see themselves as targets first and athletes second. Instead of building the mental toughness required to handle the spotlight, these players are coming out of the program ready to claim they've been victimized at every turn. It is an exhausting trend that is starting to alienate fans who just want to watch high-level basketball without the constant injection of manufactured racial drama. Dawn Staley might be a great coach in terms of wins and losses, but the mindset she is instilling in these young women is creating a generation of players who can't handle criticism.
Monkey. Those are pathetic internet trolls who you need to report and block, not people in person being foul. Rival fans also disguise themselves as Fever fans. Caitlin Clark fan base is not the only fan base that has horrible, pathetic, toxic trolls. They're everywhere. Fever Basketball 101. Why would Iowa fans say that? They wouldn't. Because it was just a game they got over after the game was over. They were focused on the championship game now. Oh, wow, 40-point triple. Can we move on now? Let's focus on the... I'm supposed to believe she got called racial slurs because CC waved her off because she can't.
The reality is that being a victim seems to be a requirement to play in the WNBA these days. If you play women's basketball, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find a way to claim you were called a name by a white person. This has become the go-to gimmick for players who can't find a way to draw an audience on their own merit. They know that mentioning Caitlin Clark's name is the only way to get people to pay attention to their interviews. It is a pathetic strategy that shows a complete lack of confidence in their own skills and their own brand. We are seeing a pattern where players who never even crossed paths with Clark in college are already setting themselves up to blame her and her fans for any future failures they might experience in the professional league.
Dawn Staley, what a coach. Just coaching the victimhood mindset. Crushing it out there, Dawn. Crushing it out there in your Louis V dress up. Crushing it. Or is it Gucci? I forget. One of those Titanic clothing brands. This can't be her gimmick. I want more for her. LMAO. Real humans want to draft this. Great point. Great point. People really wanted to draft this on the Fever. You people need help. One, nothing about her game says, oh yeah, I want that on my team. 0.
Angel Reese has been at the center of this storm for a long time, and her reaction to the Raven Johnson situation was entirely predictable. She has built her entire brand on being the foil to Caitlin Clark, and she thrives in the chaos that these accusations create. When Reese snaps over the supposed mistreatment of her peers, she isn't just defending a friend, she is protecting a narrative that keeps her in the headlines. The problem is that the public is starting to see through the act. They see the hair pulling, the shoving, and the aggressive behavior on the court. Yet these players still want to act like they are the ones being persecuted. It is a bizarre disconnect from reality that is making it harder and harder for the league to gain mainstream respect.
Gets done. No monkey noises. It was made up. It was bullshit. It was nonsense. Just another victim playing victim. I've literally watched players shove each other, pull hair, etc., but leaving her wide open and waving her off was the criminal offense. She did get attacked online afterwards, though, but it was from the South Carolina fans mad about how she played and that they lost. It's been 3 years. Let it go. When Dawn said Cece makes everyone better, I didn't realize she was talking about her own players, too. Welcome to the WNBA, folks, where everybody's a victim.
Let's talk about the alleged monkey noises for a second, because this is where the hoax narrative really starts to take shape. There have been multiple investigations into similar claims in the past, and almost every single time, the evidence shows that no such thing happened. We've seen players claim they heard slurs from the crowd, only for the audio and video recordings to prove that the stands were either silent or making standard cheering noises. It is a dangerous game to play because it trivializes actual racism when it does occur. By making up these stories to fit a victim narrative, these players are doing a massive disservice to the sport and the people they claim to represent. It's a gimmick that is designed to shut down any and all criticism of their play. If you look at the comments from that era, the Iowa fans were largely focused on the championship game and the incredible performance of their own star player. They didn't have time to obsess over a player who was being left wide open because she wasn't a threat. The idea that a whole stadium of people would coordinate to hurl specific racial slurs at a secondary player because of a wave-off is statistically and logically improbable. It feels like a story that was cooked up in a lab to generate maximum sympathy and maximum outrage. These players need to realize that internet trolls are not representative of an entire fan base. There are toxic people in every corner of the web, but trying to pin that on a specific team's followers is a reach of epic proportions. The I Am Athlete podcast has become a breeding ground for these kinds of unsubstantiated claims. They know that if they don't mention Caitlin Clark, nobody is going to watch the episode. It's 2024, and we are still talking about a game that happened years ago because these players refuse to let it go. They are living in a past where they felt slighted, and they are determined to make everyone else suffer for it. It is embarrassing to see professional athletes who are so insecure in their own skills that they have to resort to these kinds of tactics to stay relevant. Raven Johnson should be focusing on her game and proving she can hit a 15-foot shot, but instead she is focused on playing the victim for a podcast audience that thrives on drama. The influence of Dawn Staley cannot be overstated here. She is out there in her high-end designer outfits, coaching her players to have a chip on their shoulder that is based on perceived slights rather than actual competition. It is a toxic environment that breeds resentment and entitlement. When your coach tells you that the world is out to get you, you start to see enemies everywhere. You start to interpret a basketball move like a wave-off as a personal attack on your identity. This is the Dawn Staley effect, and it is poisoning the well of women's college basketball. It's no wonder these players struggle to transition into the pro league without bringing a mountain of unnecessary baggage and drama along with them. We are seeing a trend where rival fans are even disguising themselves as Fever fans or Clark supporters just to stir the pot. The internet is a hall of mirrors, and these players are falling for every single reflection they see. Instead of reporting and blocking the pathetic trolls who live in their basements, they are taking these comments to heart and presenting them as if they are the consensus opinion of millions of people. It is a complete lack of perspective that shows just how sheltered these athletes have become. They want the fame and the money that comes with the new era of women's basketball, but they don't want the scrutiny that comes with it. You can't have one without the other, and playing the race card isn't going to change that. The most insulting part of this entire situation is the claim that she wanted to quit basketball because of the wave-off. If your mental state is that fragile, perhaps professional sports isn't the right career path for you. High-level athletics is about overcoming adversity, not leaning into it until you get a pity party. We've seen players in other leagues deal with actual, documented abuse, and they come back stronger. Here, we have a player who got embarrassed on the court and decided to turn it into a national tragedy. It is an insult to every athlete who has actually struggled and fought through real obstacles. The victim complex is a cancer in the locker room, and it's something that needs to be cut out before it ruins the league. Fans are getting exhausted by the constant influx of this nonsense. We want to talk about stats, we want to talk about strategy, and we want to talk about the incredible growth of the game. Instead, we are forced to sit through endless interviews where players complain about things that likely never happened. The public's patience is wearing thin, and you can see it in the comment sections across social media. media. People are tired of being told they are part of a toxic fan base just because they support a certain player. This strategy of attacking the fans is going to backfire spectacularly because at the end of the day, those fans are the ones paying the bills and keeping the league afloat with their attention and their wallets. There is a growing desire among the core audience to cleanse the palate of these victim players. We want athletes who are tough, who can take a loss on the chin, and who don't need to invent a conspiracy theory every time they get outplayed. The Indiana Fever in particular should be very careful about who they bring into their locker room. The last thing that team needs is another player who is more focused on their social media narrative than their shooting percentage. We've already seen the damage that a victimhood mindset can do to a team's chemistry, and it's a mistake that shouldn't be repeated. The league needs a standard of professionalism that seems to be missing from the current crop of rising stars. The irony of the whole situation is that Caitlin Clark has done more to elevate the profile of these players than they have ever done for themselves. By simply existing and playing at a high level, she has brought a spotlight to the game that has allowed players like Raven Johnson and Angel Reese to get these podcast deals and endorsement opportunities. Yet instead of showing any level of gratitude or even just professional respect, they choose to bite the hand that feeds them. It is a short-sighted strategy that might get them a few clicks today, but it's going to leave them in the dust in the long run. When the Clark hype eventually settles, what will these players have left besides their stories of being victimized? Think about the message this sends to the next generation of players. Young girls in high school are watching this drama unfold, and they are learning that the easiest way to get famous isn't to work on your jumper, but to find a way to claim you were mistreated. We are setting up a pipeline of players who are going to enter the college system looking for reasons to be offended. By the time they get to Victimhood University, they'll be experts at spotting imaginary slurs in a crowded arena. It is a downward spiral for the sport that could undo years of progress. We need to get back to the basics of basketball and stop rewarding the players who are the loudest about their supposed suffering. The investigation into these claims will likely yield the same results as every other investigation of this nature: zero evidence. There will be no audio of monkey noises, no video of fans using slurs, and no witnesses to back up the story. It will be another case of he said, she said, where the she said is treated as gospel by a media that is too afraid to ask tough questions. But the fans aren't stupid. They know when they're being lied to, and they know when a story is being manipulated for maximum impact. This gimmick is running out of steam, and the players who rely on it are going to find themselves increasingly isolated as the public moves on to athletes who actually care about the game. Angel Reese's involvement only serves to prove how coordinated these narratives often are. They all follow the same script: claim harassment, mention a high-profile white player, and then wait for the media to run with the story. It's a cynical way to play the game, and it's clearly a strategy to deflect from the fact that many of these players are struggling to maintain their dominance as the talent pool in the league grows. If you can't beat them on the court, try to beat them in the court of public opinion. The problem is that the public is becoming jury and judge, and they aren't buying the prosecution's case anymore. The hoax label is sticking because it fits the facts better than the allegations do. The WNBA is at a crossroads right now. It can either become a legitimate, top-tier professional sports league, or it can devolve into a reality TV show filled with manufactured drama and racial tension. The current path they are on is leaning heavily toward the latter. When players feel emboldened to go on podcasts and make massive, life-altering accusations without a shred of proof, the integrity of the entire organization is at stake. The leadership of the league needs to step in and demand accountability from its players. You can't just throw around words like monkey and racial slurs to get a headline without expecting people to ask for receipts. If you can't provide them, there should be consequences for damaging the reputation of the fans. It's time to call a spade and realize that these players are living rent-free in their own heads. Caitlin Clark isn't thinking about Raven Johnson or a wave-off from years ago. She's thinking about the next game. The fact that Johnson is still talking about this shows an incredible level of insecurity. She won the national championship the following year, yet she's still hung up on a moment where she got clowned on the court. That should have been the end of it, a great comeback story. But instead, she had to taint the victory by injecting this narrative of racial abuse. It's a sad reflection of where the sport is headed if its champions can't even enjoy their success without playing the victim. The real fans of the game are the ones who suffer in all of this. We are being told that our passion and our support are toxic simply because we don't buy into every wild accusation that is thrown out during a podcast interview. We are being told that we are the problem, when in reality, we are the ones showing up to the games and buying the jerseys. The players who are pushing these hoax narratives are biting the hand that feeds them, and eventually that hand is going to stop offering support. The league needs a reality check, and it needs it soon. We need to stop the nonsense and get back to what actually matters, the basketball. Ultimately, the truth always has a way of coming out. Whether it's through a lack of evidence or the sheer absurdity of the claims, the public will eventually see this for what it truly is, a desperate attempt to stay relevant in a world that is moving past them. The era of the manufactured race hoax is coming to an end, and the players who built their brands on it are going to have a hard time adjusting. We need to demand more from our athletes and more from the media that covers them. It's time to move past the victimhood mindset and embrace the true competitive spirit of the game. If you can't handle the heat of the spotlight, it's time to step off the court and let the real players take over.